Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Kiss My Wax. Um, we are going to be discussing a pretty interesting record today. But before I get into that, joining me as always is Joe Lalich, John
So
Humphrey, and our
aren't they
friend
all aren't they
Arian.
aren't they all kind of special? Very
It-
special? Why is this one very special?
well, it's
Very, very special.
it's very
Yeah, yeah,
very special, yeah. So anyway, we decided to get together. It's been a long time since we've recorded anything for
Yeah.
Collectibles or Kiss My Wax or anything.
Yep.
But we've been talking about this amongst each other in the background for a little while, and because we have some interesting new information. But just to blow the doors off of everything, we are going to discuss this
Dun,
little
dun, dun.
yeah dun, 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 very controversial record, the color version of the Rock and Roll Over promo sampler. And so, you know, again, this is pretty controversial. We have camps on both sides now that are, this is absolutely a fake,
Yeah.
and this is what we believe to be absolutely real.
Yeah.
And then you got some people on the fence in the middle.
Right.
I kind of, I may be on that fence a little bit, but I'm leaning more towards, one way or the other. But we've got some interesting new information, and we're just going to discuss it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the record, when it popped up, all of those kinds of things. And see, Arian, I'm stuttering, so But so what do we want to start on this, guys? We want to start on when we might have seen these pop up, or
Yeah. What's interesting, what kind of started this next wave of us talking and ultimately doing what I'll show what I've done to my copy, which is probably a big no-no for a serious OCD style collector like myself, is that recent eBay auction, man. What was the final price on that thing? It was
it over $3,000?
it was over 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was went up there.
So let's maybe just take a step back. So this record for a long time has sort of floated around as one of these ones that, is it real? Is it fake? There's obviously the promo black and white version of this, right?
Right.
That's right. John, I don't know if I don't have mine handy. But
Yeah.
So obviously there's the special edition, sort of the original that everybody knows, one of the promo records in the group of promo stuff that people sort of want to collect, right?
Right.
So then popped up this color version, John, if you have that sitting there.
Yeah.
Or Arian, if you have.
Arian has his too. Yeah.
Yep.
So then this one popped up, right? And in some collector circles, it was sort of dismissed out of hand as, oh, this thing is fake, right?
Right.
As we've sort of talked about it over the intervening, what has it been now, Jason? 4 years or so, something like that?
Oh, yeah. Probably more than that.
At least
since 2015, 16, something like that.
Okay. So 8 or 9 years, so even longer. So there's been some conjecture over whether this thing is real or fake. And like Jason said, there's now these two entrenched camps. It's a little silly, let's be honest. But there's these two entrenched camps who have decided, oh, it's absolutely fake because we say it's fake. And then there's this other group who goes, really, I mean, this thing has all the markings and hallmarks of all the records that we know and love throughout the years, the way it smells, the way they're dinged up. And obviously those aren't absolute indicators of it being, 70s vintage, but they sure are indicators of them being, older or, much older than maybe what some people believe. Right. So as this one, like John said, the reason why this thing has sort of percolated back to the top, and all of us are sort of wondering, what's the story here, is this one that came up on eBay recently. And obviously we've talked in Kiss collector circles, like we've said, for 8 or 9 years about this. Now one has fetched over $3,000 on eBay.
Right.
So now we're all thinking amongst ourselves, whether it's real or fake, should we reopen the discussion on this record? And do we have any definitive reasons to think this thing is real or fake?
Right.
John Humphrey got super engaged, which I've loved to see over the last couple of weeks as we've talked about it. And like I said, this thing has the hallmarks of being extremely old, and there's a bunch of reasons, which I guess we can sort of start to cover now. or here in a minute if we want to talk about some of the new things that we've gotten. But
I forgot about that.
But yeah, so that's sort of the setup. That's kind of what we're here to discuss today. And I don't think any of us are here ever to take a definitive absolutely, unless we have the press person or, people who were there in the moment, or people who, I guess what we're trying to do is throw it out to the group and go, hey, do we have any more evidence? Because I know, Jason, we talked about this on one podcast before. And John, you might have been on that one with us, right? Where somebody came up and said, hey, I bought one of these in Vegas in whatever year.
Yeah.
It was a comment on when we talked about promos. We talked about promo stuff, and at the very end, John showed, hey, here's another controversial one.
Right.
And that guy hung on and watched that whole episode, and he said, hey guys, I bought a copy of this in Vegas in the early 80s from I think he was saying, I don't know if he said a radio station, but maybe a DJ that was getting rid of his promo.
I think that was it. Yeah.
And he's had it all this time. Of course, there's the people in the camp that's like, and we've kind of talked about this many times before in the groups before. It's like you can't really. The guy that says I saw that in my grandmother's attic in the 70s or something like that. How much credence can you put on it? But I just found it very interesting that he watched all the way through that podcast, and he was like, now hang on, I remember buying this. I own it, and this is when I bought it.
Right.
So don't know who that guy is. Would love to talk to him further. But yeah, that's kind of some more indication that we had that it's older than what people think it is.
Right.
So
yeah, for sure. So I might have stepped on the opening a little bit. We want to reintroduce John Humphrey from Seether and the Nixons, Rockstar par excellence, and our friend Aryan, who is joining the discussion. He has a copy, and he has some super interesting insights on this record as well that we wanted to kind of bring into the fold. But before we do all that, do we want to kind of quickly jump into what's in my box?
But before all that, we'll do this.
I'm gonna open it.
Oh, what's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
I love that.
So, all right, I don't have anything because I wasn't planning on showing anything, and I don't know. And I don't know, but so let's just go ahead and do let's do John Humphrey. What do you got?
Okay. I've heard rumors, Jason, that you're getting out of Kiss collecting. Is that why you haven't bought anything and you're starting to put all your stuff up on eBay?
That's correct?
That's the rumor that I've heard.
Yeah.
All right. Finally.
I need to talk. Then we need to talk.
No, I'm not doing that.
I know.
I have gotten some things, just not any vinyl, and it's all in my display case out there.
So I am still actively pursuing and almost done with the series of Filmworks, the 83-84 pressing run, US.
Yep.
Which is sometimes the sticker barcode, or on the solo albums has the 501 in the corner, but no barcode kind of thing. So I was able to find, this is a sealed gene.
Nice.
And the 501 there.
Exciting.
That's kind of cool. And this guy sent these in two bags for the Paul and Peter. Peter's sealed, which is kind of cool. Yeah, perfect. Paul is open. It's in great shape. And here's what those labels look like, right? It's
right.
No solo face on the label there, just the Filmworks label. 83-84 series. And then I also added a Hotter Than Hell, which actually has a barcode sticker.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I still need an Ace, and I think I need Destroyer and Love Gun, and I'll have that series completed. But that's been fun, slowly getting that over. It's probably been the slowest series, getting all the pieces connected on that one and getting it completed.
I was going to say, a lot of that stuff can be elusive and tough.
Sure.
Really tough, man. Gets lost in the mix, right? Somebody will post a 78 solo album, not realizing it's not a 78 or whatever,
Correct.
Right. And on Discogs, you just have, somebody might not know what they have and what pressing they have.
Right.
And they might and you're just getting the stock photo. Now you're looking on eBay, and now you're looking on eBay for one that is clear enough to show either the barcode or the file.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's tricky. It's not, you just can't put it in and just add it to your want list, you know?
It is. And on Discogs, there's actually entries of, 83, 84 series on the solo albums. But again, like you said, if a non-serious Kiss collector is listing their items, chances are they're going to go put it under a 78 before they seek out, because they don't even know or aware of the 83, 84, series.
Sure.
Yep. Joe, what do you got?
So a couple of things. We've talked about this one before. This was a pretty bizarre and exciting one to get. So,
oh yeah.
So, Gene from the Philippines. So this, oddly enough, everybody jumps up and down. Oh, these records were never ever sealed in any, foreign. Well, that's
right.
Let's not say never. Let's say maybe mostly or whatever.
That's a good lesson to learn there. Is you can't say never.
Right.
So this thing is actually sealed. This is a Gene from the Philippines. It's got under the shrink here. It's got this Kiss Army patch and poster thing. So this was sort of a giveaway from back in the day where you had to collect these 4 pieces from each of the solo records. You put them together, and then at the bottom here it says, "Oh, you might win some. Whatever is on the back of this thing, you win." And then also, though, if you took this thing into the record store, there were point of purchase pieces that were advertised on here. Oh, it says, so let me just read it real quick. It says, 4 solo albums of Kiss will have a piece of paper each. The 4 pieces of paper will form the word Kiss. You can form the word Kiss by buying all the 4 solo albums of Paul, Gene, Peter, Ace. Bring your 4 albums and surrender the 4 letters to Kiss Army headquarters, and then it gave you the address, and get your free Kiss patch and poster. All right. So as a bonus, after forming the word Kiss, look behind the letters. You may win U.S. printed, colored, or black and white, either Kiss pictures, Kiss folders, Kiss record sleeves, Kiss discography materials, or Kiss Marvel Comics Special Edition. So hurry. So I will show that here up close.
Incredible.
Wow. That's awesome. Again, what country?
From the Philippines.
Philippines, yeah.
Yeah. And you can see, it's sealed, but you're starting to get the, kind of the tear through here a little bit.
Right.
You got the ringware. So and then there's the
all
back.
white.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's number 1. Number 2 is this bad boy. The Elder from India.
India.
Wow.
Wow. Kom hier kijken.
So there's this guy. Here is, I'll show you the label in just a second, but here was the that it came with this little insert.
Yeah.
I don't really quite know what this is, but then there's also this. Wow. This is the inner there, and then here's the back of it, which at the very bottom here.
Yeah.
We usually do this at night, so there's not sun coming through your
not
window.
So much of a glare. So can you guys see that?
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Almost looks like a Motown M.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
Incredible.
So there's that, and then here is the
cool
label on that guy.
Yeah.
And then to stir up yet even more controversy, I'll just throw this one in quickly. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But I was showing this to the guys before. So
dun dun dun. Controversy number 2.
Start your engines. So this was purported to have come from a collection from a gentleman who worked at RCA, who worked his way up from a press or punch operator up to a vice president. I think I just read to you guys. Mm-hmm. And he had all kinds of crazy ideas in the Elvis world. He was creating a lot of these picture discs. And John Humphrey, I know you're into the Elvis thing quite heavily. And you had heard of this collection sort of existing out there that somebody had experimented with these picture discs, it's sort of like in the off hours, or, hey, what if we did this, or what if we did this sort of a thing. So this has come from that man's collection, who apparently has passed, and now all this stuff is sort of being disseminated through collector circles.
Yeah. So just this is off of the website that has kind of been put together. Joe can talk about it a little bit more if he wants to. But this is from that website, and this is talking about the Kiss ones that were done. So, you can see Joe's down here that he recently picked up, and then there are a couple of other versions. Extremely limited number of pressings, probably all experimental, never made it into, retail setting of any kind. It's pretty interesting stuff, and Joe was able to get his hands on that Rock and Roll Over, which is pretty phenomenal.
The outline of the lettering, Joe, is that gold instead of silver? It looks gold on the camera.
It's yellow. What I kind of wondered was it white, and did it get sort of colored when it was what I mean, made as a picture disc? But yeah, it doesn't really seem like it has a metallic quality to it, but there it is up close.
Yeah.
it's
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's interesting. So
again, we're not taking any hard and fast lines on this, but from my perspective, when we looked at this, I was like, somebody would go through the problem of putting together this sort of homespun website, and it's the guy's kid who's selling the stuff, and so anyway,
and it isn't just Kiss is just like a little touch of this. That John has been aware of this Elvis picture disc situation, and a lot of those are one of a kind.
Yeah, one of a kind, and a lot of them don't even have Elvis music on them. They have another artist. They were just sort of experimental. And we had Joe play a little bit of this, and it appears it's got Kiss actually on the vinyl, which is really cool too.
Right.
And interestingly enough, there's a PDF catalog that you can go and look at this stuff online. It looks like, it looks like they did a little touch of a lot of different one-off kind of bands, but like Barry Manilow, the Beatles, there's a Christmas song thing. There's an Ace Frehley, Gene Simmons, Peter Criss, and Kiss it has listed here. So who knows, but there's no pictures of that stuff. Rod Stewart, Styx, Bat Out of Hell. I don't know. So I'll let you guys do what you want with that. There seemed like there was so much provenance to it. It just seemed like, I don't know. I took a stab at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Took a chance.
Yeah. Very cool.
Arian, are you going to show us is that a cat?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is Oscar.
Oh.
Hey, Oscar.
So anyways, I didn't really prepare, but it was really nice that Joe was showing the Gene from the Philippines, because I was posting this the other day on my Facebook. And this one is actually not sealed, but it does has one of those flyers. It has a different text, I noticed. And it's very nice to see that Joe actually bought that Gene, because I had eyes on it. It was on eBay for
I saw it for a while.
Yes, and it wasn't cheap. But actually, my good friend from Russia owns the other three with the flyer sealed, and he actually bought them from the same seller. And the seller thought like, okay, the first three were like reasonably priced, and the last one put like extremely high price. So my friend was kind of pissed, and that's why it was on eBay for years. And I was thinking like, maybe I want to buy it, and then suddenly it was gone. So
Joe pulled the rug out from under it.
Yeah, it went to a good place, so that's good. So what did I get?
Yeah, what have you got?
Well, this week actually, not. So I got this promo album from Japan. Has a couple of pictures on it, and probably like one song. I'm not even sure which one. Talk to Me from 1980.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I got an upgrade to my Barbarize album, something from the late 80s, I think.
Yeah.
I got a couple of, actually, a couple of upgrades and variants on my singles. Actually,
Nice.
singles was my first passion when I started collecting. So
Really?
I think I own them all, but only the picture sleeves, because I don't collect without picture sleeve. I think that's boring. But then I probably started buying a few, so you know how it goes. So first, let's collect only the solos, you know, and only the blue labels, you know.
Yeah, down the rabbit holes you go.
There you go. Yeah.
I always say, guys, the worst thing for a collector is to be complete. So you start to, you know, expand your scope, and I try really to stay into the scope, you know. And anyways, let me see. I have something else to show. No. So
that's great stuff, my friend.
Cool.
Great stuff. All right,
thank you.
so let's talk about it. Let's talk about this rock and roll over color promo.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, maybe we don't really have a program or whatever, but maybe it's good to discuss the pluses and the minuses of this album.
Sure. Let's
do it. Because that's what I did for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because I know as a collector, you tend to, you know, believe that you found something new, and because you're excited, and maybe you're not totally objective, you know. So maybe it's good. I mean, I had a good friend over, Rob Ahlers, the other day, and I said, you know, I know Rob for like, I don't know, he was one of my first Kiss buddies in the late 80s. And Rob is also a collector and high-end stuff. And he came over. He never been to my place, and he lives far away. And so I said, okay, let's have a look. And he was like studying that thing. And I said, well, you know. And he said, well, I'm not sure. I said, why? You know, because how obvious can this be? Why are you doubting? You know, and then you know, somebody said like, okay, this was made in the early 90s, you know, and I said, you know, the early 90s, you know, that's Hot in the Shade. Let's grab a Hot in the Shade album.
Yeah.
Right.
And I said, compare the record. This isn't a 1990 album sleeve, you know. This is a 1976 sleeve, you know. And we took a first pressing of Rock and Roll Over with the Camel label, and we were like comparing them. And the silver and.
The silver
is the kicker for me.
It's a big.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the sniffing. Like, what do we smell here?
The smell test, man.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know, you know, a friend of mine is also like, you know, this could have, you know, the early 90s was over 30 years ago, and you know, that can smell old too. But, you know,
just like Jason does.
Right. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of discussion back and forth saying, well, maybe this thing wasn't made in the early 2000s or the mid 2000s or whatever, but maybe this thing was made in 1990 or 91 and was disseminated, you know, in the Kiss Expos. And, you know, because it is early, maybe they didn't press many of them or print many of them. And, you know, and so there's a lot of discussion every time we come back and say something like, well, you know, it looks old, it smells old. Well, you know, it is old now if it was done in the early 90s. So how do we combat that?
Well, to me, there's a checklist that you start to go through as a person who has experience with these things, where in any sort of collectible realm, right? You start to make this mental checklist of how does it feel? How does it look? Is it weathered? Does it have ring? You know, like I collect comic books as well. So is the paper a little bit brown? You know, you go through all this stuff. Is there ring wear? It's a little bit like that Gene Philippines, right? Like, is it coming through the, you know, years of shrink wrap? Would it come through? And then would it have the wear marks of where it you know, kind of came through the shrink? It's just all this sort of, and there's not a hard and fast thing, but you just and I know it sounds weird, but just sort of out of experience, you go, gosh, this thing feels real because it has all of the hallmarks of all the 70s, 60s, 70s, and very early 80s records that I've ever touched before. Had the same, that feels the same in the hand. It smells the same. It has the ring wear. It has the dents and creases because you're the last thing you want to do is get one of these that's like immaculate. And then you go, okay, wait a minute. This feels like, a little bit of a red flag.
And I think many of the examples, most of the examples that we know of, don't they have some kind of, corner dings?
Yeah.
I know John's, I know John 5 has it. His had like water damage, didn't it?
Right. No, mine did actually.
Yours
I think, yes, I talked about it. It had, the guy actually, when he sold it to me, he's like, unfortunately, it's got some ring wear. When I got it, I noticed that it was water damage from a record. You know how sometimes we'll get stuck to the cover, maybe water comes into play or something, and it was sort of slightly stuck to it. And then I noticed that, well, the damage is not to the cover. It was whatever cover was there before. So I was able to clean that off.
Right.
And so, yeah, that told me it had been stuck to something for a long time.
Right.
And I did my lighter fluid trick and was able to gently get it kind of cleaned off.
Sure.
But yeah, mine has, like this bump kind of going on and, usual corner wear.
It has the patina of something that looks like it's been moved, transported. You know what I mean? It's
right.
And it's not something that you could easily recreate. And again, could that have happened since the 90s? Absolutely, with the way that some people. But again, it's another one of those things that it's a hallmark. So you check that box too, So you start creating these lists of things in your head and you go, okay, does this make it feel more real and authentic, or does this make it feel less real and authentic?
Right. I mean, and that's the deal for me. I mean, I've been collecting for many years. I've had and do own bootlegs and counterfeits. I have held how many hundreds in my life. And when I first held this thing in my hands, I mean, it's just different. It isn't like, a bootleg. At least this is the most, equal in quality and card stock to its exact counterpart, its normal, its regular cover counterpart, that it's just unbelievable. So when I talk to people, I'm like, have you actually held one? Because it feels different.
Yeah, and that's another thing to speak to is the stock that this is on. I think there has been some misinformation, I'm not 100% sure, out there about this, is that it was printed on thin cardboard. Right. And that is not the case here. At least all the copies that we know of is the same general stock that the original was printed on, correct?
Yes.
I don't own one, so
exact same.
So guys, the fact that this record has a full track list of the album.
Right.
My question to you guys is that a plus or is that a minus?
So that's obviously the question, right? Why does it have a full track list? Were they going to do a promo with this special cover? I don't know. The other thing, I guess, Aaron, it does have the promo catalog number.
I didn't know that. That's
so
because
it's
you
not
said that, and I was checking it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't even check that." But
right,
yeah. But yes, that's right. That's one of the big questions.
So listen to this, John. Listen to this, John. Wouldn't it make sense for the fact that it has a full track listing to withdraw this cover? Like, hey, we made a mistake.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a deadline to make.
Yeah.
This is just some theory, of course, but we have a deadline to make. We made a mistake. Let's destroy everything and let's print as fast as we can a cheaper black and white one. I don't know if that's faster to make or not. I don't know, the old way. And but that would be a
plausible scenario. Absolutely.
And so this is what I was going to say too. So outside of the physical aspects that we have of these records that we know to exist, then you also have these sort of philosophical check marks that you start going through in your head, and you're like, okay, so if it has the wrong track list, I've worked in art departments for 25 years, right? People fuck up all the time. I mean, you can't go to the fast food restaurant and get your order right at the drive-through half the time, right? So people working in in these ways. It's easy to make these mistakes because somebody could say, oh, I thought you said you wanted this on there, and it's already, oh my God, it's at press, and a pressman's, somebody pulls it off and goes, hey, this is the wrong. I mean, look, it happened with Alive too. Do we have any other, what else is slipping my mind in the KISS world that are misprints? Is there anything else out there?
Anyway, the Dynasty jacket.
Oh, the Dynasty, yeah.
And the Dynasty jacket, right? Yeah. So there's two examples right in the KISS collecting community of things that went, whoa, we got to pull this back, right?
Right.
That came out in what, we've discussed the rarity of those items, but those were certainly pulled back at a certain point, and the actual real or official one was then. That doesn't make that fake. It just means that there was an art department screw up, or somehow something got past somebody. And we all know that the record world is littered. The collectibles world is littered with misprints. And a lot of times that's what makes these things even more valuable, because you know that they were printed in a more minimal quantity than the others.
Yeah, it's awful ironic.
Sorry, the Angel record, Sinful.
Yeah.
Which was originally printed with the bad publicity, totally different artwork, and even the first batch of records have bad publicity on the label, and at the last moment they were canceled, and okay, that wasn't a misprint, but it does tell that things can go quite far up until the last moment and then replaced.
It's amazing to me in a collector's circle that we have here with KISS, that you can have examples like the Alive 2 misprint, the Dynasty misprint, and all of the interesting variations of the first album as they were transitioning, that those are automatically, holy grails. But this one pops up and it's automatically, this has got to be a fake. I've never seen one before. It's got to be a fake. I don't understand why there's a camp that is so resistant to discussing the possibility that this thing could be real. It blows my mind.
Right. I think you have to be open to the possibility that we don't know everything. There is still stuff to learn, which is the beauty of this, really.
Right. And then there's there's something being said that, like all these guys that own this, like Arian and John Humphrey and John Five, and I know that there's others out there that have them, but I'm not going to mention their names. That people say, well, of course they want them to be real. They either spend a lot of money on them, or they want have something valuable in their collection, and only the people that are saying these things are real are the ones that actually own these things. And they want them to be real. Well,
sure.
I mean, that's silly, especially when you have. I mean, you guys are avid record collectors, not just KISS collectors, avid record collectors, and you're not just out there spouting off nonsense,
Well, and I personally, and nobody I know either, is out there just going, oh, hey, I feel like throwing $1,000 out the window, or in this case, $3,000 out the window. And that doesn't mean that it makes it more real or less or more authentic, but people are doing. There's no way that you're going to spend $3,000 to me without doing your homework and going, hey, I would
hope so.
You know what I mean? Unless it's somebody who just has so much money. But at the
same time, there are those.
Yeah, of course. So I guess just that little discussion that we just had right there about somebody spending $3,000 and throwing it around, like there's some plausibility even in that. Like we could have a whole discussion around whether somebody would buy it, why would they buy it, like all that stuff. So I guess where I come down on this whole thing is, as you get a little bit older, you find that life is really made up of a spectrum of gray. There's very little black and white, unless you get into the sciences and math. And even then, sometimes they go, hey, all that stuff that we thought was real in science, it turns out that wasn't what we thought. But there's also a regimented way that they go through it. And I guess that's what we're trying to do here, is trying to be as scientific as possible when we're looking at this thing, as you can be, without actually putting it through scientific rigor.
Which is a good segue into talking about what our good friend John Humphrey has done to his copy. So about a month ago, the conversation came up in one of the groups about this, and we had the normal people going back and forth. I think it's 100% fake. I think it's 100% real, and I think it could be real, it could be fake. And John said, "All right, I've had it." And John
Humphrey mad.
I have to say this. I have to give props to my wife who, for most of this, she just rolls her eyes. But we were driving this was on eBay, this recent, auction. And then the thread started on one of our, on the group. And I was starting to I was hesitant about chiming in. And then I did a little bit. And I was telling my wife the whole story. And she got fired up. And she helped me do this because she knows I would never do this, and but I did it though. I took it apart.
John Humphrey took this $3,700 record apart to see what we find on the inside of this thing.
Right. So
let's talk a little bit about why John did this, why we thought it needed to be done. So, in the printing world, obviously you have the key line. Back in the day, at this point, right, there's going to be bleed that's required, which is the amount of color that bleeds off of the trim edge, and then there's going to be lines, marks, registration, all kinds of things that were on the key line board back in the day, where these pieces of film had to go over top of one another in order to register or make sure that all the colors line up, right?
Right. So there's a key line here.
Right. So you can sort of see exactly what we're talking about there. There's the cut line of the edge of the actual sleeve itself right there, where somebody might use that as a cut line. Yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
Key line. Yeah.
Yep. And then what else did we find inside here, John?
And then we found a patent code, U.S. patent code, right?
So Jason's putting up that photo right now.
If you look it up, it actually is for the patent for this style of LP cover,
which we have here,
which I think dates back to the 50s or something.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it does.
It dates back to 1992. Sorry, John.
So we have a patent number printed on the inside of this jacket on the fold, and that patent number matches up to sleeves that were created in the 50s.
Right.
Okay? All
right. We're the first patent in just that style of cover, that fold over.
That's right.
Style,
which we kind of see
cover.
here. I know it's small, but we kind of see that here.
Yeah.
Okay, can we take one step back right now?
Yes.
So with that patent number being printed on the inside, with my year, and we have plenty of listeners and watchers on this show who are in the graphic design field, in the printing business. I want to show of hands right now of the amount of people who would think to put the patent number of the actual way that you create a record sleeve on the inside of a bootleg. I mean,
right.
That to me, when I'm going down the list of these things that we're marking off, I mean, I would never. Is there a diabolical bootlegger out there who might think of it? And have we now launched them into going, I'm going to put that patent number on the inside? Yeah, probably. But here's the reality, man. I mean, that is some diabolical thinking. I don't know, you guys, do we have an estimate of how many we think within our collecting community, how many of these there are? I mean, would 15 be the absolute top outside amount, or do we think there's more or less than that?
What do you think, Arian? How many do you think's out there that we know of?
Don't say any names or people. Yeah.
No, I only know 3, and that's you guys. I mean, John Humphrey. I mean, when I bought mine 2 years ago, I was not aware that this was discussed before. So that's why I made my rounds, with some of my friends, like, hey, do you know this? And that's, I think, Jason, when I called you, I'm not really sure. I don't remember. I mean, I remember talking to Per, and Per was like, I'm doing this book, and show me the stuff, and hey, I'm convinced, probably, and
I sent him pictures, for that book.
Yeah, me as well, and I'm like, look at this. I mean, and there wasn't a lot of time, so he was a bit doubting, but he said, no, I'm gonna put it in there, and so anyways, I wasn't aware of previous discussions about this, because I was so in shock actually to find it on eBay with such high detailed photos. Only thinking like this is a 1976 cover. It can't be. I'm gonna buy it, and if it arrives here and it turns out to be a fake, I can return it.
Right.
So, guys, still there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so I wasn't really, and then I found out John had one, and already had it for many years, which I didn't know. And then John 5, I suppose he has one. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
His name.
He does.
Yeah, exactly. So I only know of these 3 copies. I'm not aware of anyone else. But I wasn't really because it was discussed on the show before, and I must have missed that. So
John or Jason, did you guys do we know of any other confirmed copies outside of these 3 copies?
I do know that before I got mine, which maybe dates back, I want to say 2005, 2006, I want to say I saw one before that sold before me. So at least, so that's 4, maybe 5 in existence. Maybe you guys know of people who don't want to be named, but also have it in their collection.
Yeah, and I guess we could look up on PopPsych too and see how many have sold. I don't know if that's more than 3 or 4. But I also, since we're talking about origins here, John, you were talking about this before we started recording.
Yeah.
If you could kind of touch on kind of like your history of discovering this, and what you were talking about as far as that collector's guide and all of that stuff, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I need to locate that. I thought about that. I was aware of this by a collector's guide. I forget which one it was, talking about the color cover version of this. And it was on my radar since the early 2000s anyway. And then I acquired mine finally 2005, 2006. So I'll find out which collector's guide that was. It wasn't a Kiss vinyl guide per se, but it was like a collector's book. And I remember them mentioning that. So it was kind of on my radar. Like I said, I definitely saw one sell before I purchased mine.
Right.
And then found a good deal on mine. And again, I didn't buy mine from a Kiss seller. Mine was just a regular Kiss dealer. I got a great price on it.
Regular record dealer.
Yeah, regular record dealer. I did not get it from a Kiss specific, collector or dealer.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's get a little bit more back into the nuts and bolts of tearing this jacket apart. So we've got the patent number here, and then John noticed this 3 at the end. If you can see on the screen. Now we had Joe. The night that John Humphrey tore this apart, we had Joe tear apart a regular rock and roll over.
Right.
And you want to talk about that a little bit, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, so we wanted to see, hey, are there differences, are there similarities in what's going on here? And I don't know which one of them it was. I've got them, I took my not $3,700 copy of.
Right. This is a regular stock copy, right?
Right. Regular stock copy and tore it open. And what we found, I don't know if you can, let me see right there.
Yeah.
We've got the number 4.
Right.
Right. In kind of the same pin as this number. There's the 4.
Right.
This was Joe's. This is a regular stock copy on the screen there. And then there's the 3.
Mine has the 3. Right. So covers can be, obviously different pressing plants, just like records are made in different pressing plants. So
now since I'm still up here, so this is the other one.
Right.
And there we thought was another number.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So in this discussion, I think John, you said your wife went and, is that correct? Did she go look this up?
And I did. Yeah, I did actually on the factory thing. Yeah. And try to figure out what the different numbers might mean. And this is what I pulled up for 3, which is a modern album finishing, a pressing plant, New York. And then you can see the codes for 5, 7, and 9.
Right.
I didn't see 4 in that list, but just sort of indicating which pressing plants of that era did what their numbers represented, which covers they were doing.
Right. So, that's what, I don't think we have any other, there's nothing else interesting inside of either of these when we tear them apart outside of what we have shown, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's no other markings inside of the other stock copies.
Right. So, so what does all that mean? What does all that mean?
I'm not really sure, but I think I will say with Joe, that's quite detailed for a bootlegger to put together, thinking that, I'll get this guy 17 years later after he got his to open it up, and I'll leave a hidden gem of a patent number and factory number for him to discover.
Right.
I would love it if you would have opened that up and it said, "Fuck you, John Humphrey."
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
That would have been the
Gotcha.
best of all time.
Yeah. Like neons, like Vegas-style lights, blinking lights going around, big finger.
John Humphrey just shuts down all of his socials, quits his bands, goes into hiding.
Well,
yeah.
So
I don't know, you guys. I mean, so obviously these are very detailed bits and pieces of information that, as you do a little bit of sleuthing here, they all everything, the pieces of the puzzle start to fall into place, and these dots start to connect.
Right. Another thing I want to kind of discuss real quick, especially since Joe here with his design background and printing kind of background. There was been a lot of discussion about the font of the text on this thing.
Right.
So, your special edition radio station airplay and promotional not for copy, and the fact that the logos are removed. And, and then we talked a lot about the silver that outlines the saw blade here and how that's not exactly easy to replicate. And it's very, very, very unique on the Rock and Roll Over cover, how that is silver. And as you can see in later official Kiss pressings, they turn it to gray.
Yeah.
The 85 printings of that record, it's kind of gray. It's not that metallic silver kind of thing. And that those jackets kind of have like almost a grainy kind of feel to them.
Right.
All of that is present here.
Yeah.
On this color Rock and Roll Over.
Yeah.
Like it's nearly identical to the original printing.
Yeah.
And that is not easy to replicate.
Right.
And who is, making 10 of these or 15 of these in the 90s and spending all of this money and all of this time to get this exactly correct, period correct to a 1976 print? It just doesn't seem plausible to me.
Another thing, Jason.
Yes,
another
sir?
thing. I mean, if there's a full track listing, wouldn't it be more obvious to put a regular Rock and Roll Over album in there?
Sure.
And not some $500 album itself.
Right.
That's a great point.
That's a good point. So,
so let's take a step back to that silver real quick.
Yes.
So what that means is, almost all printing that you see around you is 4 colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Those colors make up, as you use dot patterns. When you put something under a loop or like a printer's magnifying glass, you see all these dots that, you've seen it, like in newspapers, how you get that dot pattern, right?
Right.
That's called 4-color printing. What you're doing when you add a silver or what's called a spot color, that's going to be laid down in a completely solid sort of fashion unless you have a gradient or something else applied to it. That's going to be an additional color to a 4-color press. So you would need a 5 or 6 color or more press or more a press capable of that to add in that extra color. So you have 4 colors, and I don't know enough about the actual printing presses themselves. Maybe some pressmen can jump in here if anybody has experience with that. But I think they only came in 4 or 6 back in the day. So you could do the 4 colors plus 2 spot colors. So for instance, if you have a hard time reproducing orange, I don't know why. Well, here's the deal. I'm so smart that the software just decided to start launching balloons from what I was saying. So anyway, those extra colors. So if you're having a hard time producing orange, which is hard in 4-color process, you might add a spot orange if it was like a branded color. Like let's say Nike they were using only a certain Pantone color, which is a spot color, and we want it to be exactly this orange because it's our brand color. Then they would add a PMS Pantone matching system or a spot color within the printing. So this silver to me then says, okay, this had to be made by somebody, not just on their printer at home, not even at like a higher end print, quote unquote digital, whatever that stuff was back in the day. Somebody had to be like we would have to be an insider to be able to go, okay, we're going to make so many of these within within our pressing system. So anyway, there's a quick little rundown on that with balloons.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the funniest shit ever.
Yeah.
So, all right. What about? Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to say to Ari, and I know you and your friend did a little bit more kind of looking at this. Was there anything else that popped up for you when you were kind of going through your mental checklist that we've talked about that sort of seemed to make sense or didn't make sense as you were going through it?
Well, the inside.
Yeah, that's good. Let's talk about the inside.
Yeah, let's see if I can, because it's a bit dark here. But when you look at the inside, you see your typical.
Yeah.
A record's been sitting in that thing for a long time.
Right.
Look,
right.
Yeah.
Since about 1997.
That's right.
Not 30 years, but
it has a little
45 years.
John.
Oh, yours?
John, hold on.
Yeah.
Kind of see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. You got that little haze of where a vinyl record would have been sitting, and the dirt from the elements and everything else would be sort of, accumulating on the outside of that vinyl because the vinyl would be pressing in and saving that paper underneath. So let's go back to the font issue as well. So I did a little bit of because that was one of the things that set off alarm bells for me. It didn't look of the era, that font, right? It almost felt like, oh, this is a quote unquote KISS or fan kind of used font,
Right.
I did some research. I can't find out what that font is exactly, and there's ways to do that. You can put typefaces on the web, a little images, throw it up there, and see if there's a font that that matches exactly. I haven't been able to find that font exactly, and that's the one we're talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that part of it. That's one of the things that for me for the whole time hasn't felt right just from a instinctive standpoint, but I'm not saying that leads me one way or the other. I'm just saying that if I had to put one in the pro and con list, that one might be closer to a con than a pro, but I don't have any even background. That's just I don't have anything hard. I don't have any hard proof. Like if what I was looking for was somebody to say, oh, that font was developed in 1998, that exact font.
Gotcha. Right.
Oh, if that font wasn't actually developed until the digital age or, later than when we expected, then that would be the thing. I wasn't able to verify that one way or the other. So if we could get any help on that, that would be cool too.
Yeah.
An identical font match and finding out when that was created. I mean, that'd put an end to the discussion.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What else do we want to cover on it? Any other thoughts?
I don't know.
The journey continues.
The journey.
Oh, I just noticed mine's got like a little pin doodle here. I don't know.
Oh, a pin doodle.
Somebody's.
It does have a pin doodle.
Somebody's been messing around.
The other thing that would be interesting on this that I hadn't thought of before was actually taking. So that's a full track list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a kicker for a lot of people.
That is.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think Arian's.
That's a great point. Why would you go do this, misprint it, and then go to the trouble of putting an otherwise $500 record vinyl into this thing? You know?
And I know that John and I were trying to go back and forth about we talked about the matrix numbers on the actual LPs, And
yes.
And we did notice that the matrix were different.
Yes. That was it.
But then I asked Arian about his
Right.
matrix, and I think it matched the matrix on the black and white. So if I remember, I can't. Is that correct, Arian? I can't remember. But John's matrix has is it like a B, like a letter B in it?
Yeah. So let's see. I'm pulling out the black and white too, so I can do a comparison. So my color cover version of the EP, the actual vinyl, the matrix ends in BLP 737A, and then obviously then B. Yeah, NBLP 737B, and then NBLP 737A, both of them also dash CSM, which is Santa Maria pressing plant on the first one. So it's A and then B.
Mm-hmm.
And then on my black and white, and I think Arian's copy as well, side A is 737A, but my side B on this one is B1.
B1, that's what it was.
Yeah, and
B1.
That's on my black and white.
Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that, I think we see a lot of times in Matrix, we've seen it where Universal on like the Love Gun 2014, when they were told by me that there was a mistake on Then She Kissed Me, when they made a new plate.
Right.
They added an extra number or letter. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. So maybe we had is it a situation where a plate broke and they made a new plate and the new plate has to be notated? Or, I mean, what is the situation there? Why is your black and white matrix of side B different than the color matrix?
Joe, do you have the regular black and white cover?
One? I don't have it.
I have mine over here.
I don't have it right.
Grab it.
Yeah.
Arm's length at the moment.
Because I'm just curious if B1 is the more typical side B rather than just the dash B.
So as we're going through this, everybody, if anybody has comments, if anybody has any information to add, please comment below on the YouTube video. We'd love to get more information on this.
Absolutely.
I want somebody to say, yeah, my great uncle was the pressman who ran this thing in 1954.
Well,
dead air, amazingly good for a pod.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Where the hell is the matrix? There it is. Oh, it's way out here. NBLP 7. Now mine says NBLP 737A1.
Okay.
Interesting. And God damn, it's tough to read. NBLP 737B.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting. So I don't, who knows? I don't know if that says anything.
Right.
But it just shows that there's maybe some transitioning, or the plants were utilizing different. I mean, who knows, right? It could mean a lot of different things, right?
Jason, did it also have CSM?
It did. Yeah, it did.
It's for Santa Maria, and then Alan Zentz.
Yes,
mine had the AZ.
It does have the AZ on it. That's
okay,
correct.
Cool, interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, it's neither here nor there, I guess, but I was kind of excited because I had a B1 on the black and white and just B on my color. So I thought, well, maybe that would indicate a earlier press, but sounds like they kind of vary. So
yeah, it kind of varies. Yeah. So
another thing that would be amazing is if we could get anybody, Arian or John 5, to pull open their copies, to actually open them up and see if the number matches, if that 3 matches on those printed pieces, because then we could start to go, oh, these were all printed at this pressing plant. At least that would be the, that would be the idea, right? Because that's what we think maybe the the 3, the 4, the 5, whatever those numbers are. Again, it's conjecture, but we seem to be putting some of the, I feel like one of those CSI shows or like the movie Seven.
Oh, I know.
They all have all the red, yarn and the dots, and this guy went to here. But yeah, I mean, I think that could be another piece of the puzzle. If we found out that all of these had those same numbers, then that would start to go, oh, these were all pressed at this plant for a split second, pulled, and then
Arian, take one for the team. Get to ripping.
Well,
you don't have to rip.
Well, if John 5 is going to rip his, I will rip mine as well.
Oh wow!
Wow,
5. If you're watching, and you better be watching, that is a
How did you do that, John? Because before I know it, I ripped it.
You did it with
I didn't rip it. No, I used an X-Acto knife to kind of break the glue.
Oh yeah.
And then kind of pulled it up.
I think
so. It will return. To,
John, was it fairly easy to do that?
Fairly easy.
Hey, there's Scott.
I went slow, and like I said, my wife was very helpful. She's got the more delicate hands, so she was, big help.
Yeah, you just bang.
I just I'm an animal with the X-Acto knife.
That's right.
All right.
So here's what I'll say about the Rock and Roll Over stock copies that I opened. I could kind of do it, but I mean, obviously I wasn't so worried. I could kind of do it by hand, and they kind of almost like popped open a little bit because the glue was old, and you know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't like, welded shut.
Yeah, mine wasn't either. Yeah, I definitely did it in less than 5 minutes once we got going.
Yeah, like the glue wanted to give up the ghost.
Yeah.
What kind of glue would you use to put it back together? I mean, I assume at some point now that we've done this, you're going to try to do that. Maybe?
Oh yeah. I'll
Elmer's.
use Elmer's or just a regular adhesive. Right.
Okay. Just like a paper glue.
Yeah.
On that, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
I usually use a glue stick, when I repair seams and do things. So, but yeah, like Joe said, probably the Elmer's.
I want to buy that one from you, John Humphrey, that says from the John Humphrey collection, destroyed and torn open in a blind fit of Facebook rage, $300. It says "fuck you, John Humphrey" on the inside.
Right. Well, I mean, does anybody have anything else they want to add? Arian, you have anything else you want to add? Nope. Okay. No. Well, I think that's a lot of food for thought. And, there's a lot of information here. And if anybody else has a copy, let us know. We'd love to find out how many more are out there. Let us know your thoughts. We know this is going to be very, very controversial. And that's okay, because we're just, we're just putting information out there. And, but if I was a betting man, I would have to say that Kiss My Wax is going to have to say that this item is 100%